Hello and welcome everybody to our complimentary webinar today, which is brought to you in partnership with NICE, Auscontact's national gold sponsor. The session today is entitled Elevating the Employee Experience During an Economic Downturn. In the spirit of reconciliation, Auscontact acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea and community. We pay our respect to their elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples here today. Today's webinar will run for approximately 60 minutes, and during that time, with the help of today's guest, Nadia, we hope to spark your interest and engage you in the conversation, as well as provide you with some ideas and thinking to take back to your respective organisations. To round off the session, we'll have a Q&A. So hi everybody, I'm Fran Southwood, CEO of Auscontact, and I will be your moderator for today. Whilst we're waiting for everyone to join us, we might as well use that time to quickly run through some housekeeping with you. The best session of webinar is those that see interactions. So we want you to interact with us today to maximise those benefits. As you know, there's no need to take too many notes. We will provide you with a recording of the session afterwards. To interact with us throughout the session, please use either the Q&A button on the control panel or the chat button. You can ask questions, you can make comments for Nadia or myself from time to time. If you're anything like me, I think of a question, but if I don't write it down, I will not remember it by the time I actually want to ask it. So make sure you just copy it down to make sure you don't lose sight of that. If the question is time sensitive or it's about something that Nadia is actually taking us through, I'll jump in and we'll get that answered there and then. Otherwise, we'll keep them for the end of the session when we do run that Q&A. So type them as we go and we'll make sure we address them. If you're listening through headphones or speakers and have any issues with your internet or your connection, use on the control panel the raise hand button and one of the Auscontact team will help you. Alternatively, you can revert to your registration confirmation email. On there, you've got all of the relevant phone numbers and access codes, so you can jump on that way. So during today's webinar, we'll also be giving away a prize, which is always a bit of a bonus. And that prize is going to be for the best question asked during the webinar. So the best question will win one of the Fabo Jabra Evolve 2 75 headset. So get those questions in and ensure you stay until the end of the webinar to be eligible. The judge is Nadia, so we'll leave it then to her and we'll follow up with an email after the webinar once we announce that winner. So I'd now like to introduce our speaker for today, and you're in for a treat. I love it when we get to really interact with our experts in the industry. They're actually helping us come up with ways, not just to do things better, but to actually challenge the status quo. Nadia Yunan, who is the WFO Solutions Manager for APAC at NICE. And as I said, we're in for a treat with Nadia for today's session. So Nadia, I'm going to hand over to you.
Hey, thank you so much, Fran. And great to be able to speak to all the Auscontact crew again this afternoon. I really enjoyed personally myself taking a bit of a down tools moment just to chat about what's going on in the industry, some of the trends that we're seeing, and what the sort of climate currently looks like. Just a bit of an apology in advance for my voice. I'm not actually ill. I've just been speaking so much lately that it's a little bit taxed, but have no fear, we're going to get through. And as Fran mentioned, you are welcome to interact via all those different channels. Love to hear your questions. Put your hand up, type them in the chat, and we'll either address them as we get on or we have allowed some time at the end for Q&A. So we are talking today about looking at ways that we can keep our folks happy and elevate the employee experience during a pretty tough economic time that we're facing out there. So there's some really strong economic headwinds that are affecting us all, right? So even for us as consumers, our mortgages, the interest rates have gone up. We know that we've got record inflation, which is hurting us at Woolies and Coles and things like that. And of course, it has a flow-on effect to the contact centre. So contact centre, the biggest expense is the people. And we're all about people in workforce management. Yes, it's about numbers and algorithms and stuff, but at its heart, it's about people. So we're going to talk about ways to, attract and retain and keep those people motivated when we don't have as much money to spend, right? Some of the basic questions that we see: if interest rates continue to rise, will consumers spend less? Probably. Will less spending drive the need to reforecast? So if we think about a consumer who would normally be buying, I don't know, retail spending, for example, or going for a bank loan, or all of those things, they may get curtailed and result in a lower demand or a lower inbound volume. Are we prepared? Do you have the best forecasting and staffing plan ready to reforecast these scenarios and understand how these economic headwinds could impact the work that's coming into the contact center? So, yeah, these are a few screen grabs from America. Obviously, each geography is different. So, as Fran mentioned, my role is Asia Pacific, and I'm seeing different market influences depending on where we're trying to spend. So, a lot of my time is spent in India, and of course they're going, gangbusters. But then closer to home, we're seeing things are a little bit more conservative. So I put this my own little screen grab on here. I'm not an economist. I don't know if we're going to go into recession or not. But I do know that times are tough and things are slow. So if you cast your mind back, right, towards the end of the pandemic, so if you think about like 2021, maybe 2022, people were hiring like crazy. So the salaries were massively inflated. You were basically able to leave and get a job anywhere. We had a lot of the big tech players were actually warehousing staff. You can see that they were recruiting people purely for the purpose of taking them off the market, right? Only because they didn't want a competitor to have one of that person. That's gone. So you can go on Google and you'll see what layoffs are Google doing. Salesforce, LinkedIn, Twilio, a whole bunch of them, right, have all had to now go through this back down shrinkage because of these economic pressures that they're facing. So I don't know that Australia will particularly go into a recession, but it's not great. We're expecting a very small economic growth of about 1.2%. I literally took that off Google yesterday. I'm sure you can find your own different statistics on it, but it means that times are tough, and I think we can all agree on that. There's some statistics on the right-hand side, the quiet quitting phenomenon. I feel like personally, I was supposed to say this, I know I'm being recorded, but I felt like that was me at the start of this year, that I was just overwhelmed, I think, with work. And you're still doing it and you're still churning it out, but you're kind of not really at that, 100 and 120% mark that you would otherwise give. And that's something I think that can hit us all at different points in time. And for us in workforce management, it has a flow through effect because they're there, they're not absent, but maybe they're not contributing the way that they normally would. And then we have our old friend attrition on the right hand side. Massive rates of attrition still exist. I think that's probably cooled off a little. As I said, the job market's probably cooled a little as well. You can't just walk out and say I want a 50 grand pay rise like you probably could not so long ago for some sectors of the market. So we've got this whole like microcosm of headwinds. We've got people who are perhaps not quite happy in their job. We have a situation where we can't just keep paying people more money. So if you think about, even like I know my own salary, again back to me, if you did the math on the rate of inflation versus your salary increase, probably not keeping pace with inflation, which in Australia is about 8%. Excuse me. So some of the challenges that we're seeing in the market, just to encapsulate this is from NICE. So we've conducted an annual survey last year, and we showed that there was an average attrition rate of about 42%. I know it's got a question mark there. We had 47% of agents who left their job in the past 18 months claim, get this, that having more scheduling options, more flexibility would have affected their reasoning for leaving. So we can take that to heart, right? And this is where we can start playing a part in bringing down some of these attrition and dissatisfaction factors that have widespread consequences through the contact center. 75% require flexibility. I couldn't do my job. I could not do my job without flexibility. So I'm sitting at home now you see the sunny DY beach out there. But my job is such that it's spread over such an array of hours that if NICE suddenly told me I had to sit in one location for 8 hours, it just wouldn't be feasible. And so I know there's a lot of backwards and forwards about working from home. A Commonwealth Bank had that big, there was a press statement not so long ago from them about trying to encourage people to go back from home. I do feel for them though. They've got massive new contact centres and offices they've invested millions in, so that I get it. So I think it's still a challenge for a lot of people, but flexibility is so critical. I think as well in terms of flexibility, we've all had a little taste of it, right? So COVID has forced the contact center industry to ramp up and accelerate those flexibility options, and we all got to go with it. It's pretty damn good. So saying to someone you have to sit here and be there, and that's where you are, and then you go home, I can see the merit from a collaboration perspective, but it's also like, giving someone a little taste of freedom and then saying no. So I'm in favor of it. And we do have statistics that back up. If you can bring in that flexibility, maybe you're not going to have 33% of your staff looking for a new job, and maybe 42% of them aren't going to want to leave you either. So let's take a little bit of a look at that in more detail. So companies are experienced millions of dollars in losses of agent attrition. We do budget models, right? So if I have someone come to me at NICE and they're a new customer, I can work out with them like the cost benefit of coming to a WFM solution. And when I do that, I gather from them, how many employees do you have and how many people leave, what the average cost to replace resigned employees. I've got one customer who is 50,000 employees and they have an attrition rate that equals something to about 20,000 people a year. So the millions and millions of dollars that go into retaining staff, finding them back, getting them to, be productive as quickly as possible when they are onboarded, mega bucks, really, really a lot of money. So we play a really critical role in this because we're at the heart of people's lives. And I say it like that because I take it that damn seriously. So I've been an employee as a contact center for about 7 years. I was an agent and I'm given the roster every week or weeks in advance. And you live and die by that thing. You might be missing Father's Day or Mother's Day, or you might be missing someone's birthday or whatever. In my gig, it was a 7-day roster. So it's really serious what you're asking people to contribute. So if you could find a way to help them become more flexible, this is like life impacting stuff. And so that's something that we're going to look at in a little more detail, how we can bake that in, put in a bit of love into our schedules and our plans and save some money in the meantime. So it becomes a win-win, right? If they can't get it, you got this big box over here saying 75% of people want it. And you can see the other metrics saying, if you can't give it to me, we're going to leave, right? It can be pretty simple. So we've got 38% here as well, investing little to no effort in retention, which just blows my mind. Like nearly 40% of the market out there are not really tackling this seriously. They know it's a problem, but they're not really at that stage yet where they're, got a strategy around it. And it's not just WFM, but we play a pretty significant part in that. We have a direct impact on scheduling flexibility. And so that helps with that retention and giving the employees a sense of what they want. So a competitive advantage of a positive employee experience, I feel like I could just stop talking and you could tell me all about this. We know this. If you're feeling happy with what you are doing and how you are consumed and your time at work, you're more likely to, stay where you are. You're more likely to be more pleasant to all of those complicated interactions that are coming through to us now. But employees want more autonomy. So autonomy for me is one of the biggest. We had our own employee survey lately, and I was like banging on about it. I need to be in a position where I can make decisions They want more purpose. And that's really, really important in a contact center. So contact center work being purposeful and being able to provide autonomy, it takes a little bit of a different lens. So when you're sitting in a contact center and there's like 400 people around you doing exactly the same thing, it can have a mind impact where you feel like if I just did that quiet quitting, or if I checked out, or if I rang up sick, no one's really going to know. Who notices, right? Because there's another bunch of people doing exactly the same thing. When people can choose a little bit more, when they're empowered to make decisions, when they can treat the customer, create a relationship with that customer, treat it like a case. I really think that drives a sense of purpose in their day-to-day being. I had an absolutely fantastic experience with Service New South Wales. There was a lady in there recently. I had to have a name change from a million years ago before records were even existed. Apparently, I was named something else, and now there's no record of it anymore. And so anyway, she took ownership, absolute ownership of that case. They actually had to go away and come back in 2 days so she could do all this escalation internally, come back and see her, and she could finish working my case. And I had a really great chat with her. I told her all about the Auscontact Awards and how Service New South Wales always sweep up at the awards, and she was fantastic. But that lady was just one person working in that Service New South Wales kiosk, completely owned the interaction, and you could tell that she just loved her job. She was purposeful. She was really bringing autonomy. And I remember the interaction stands out to me like crazy because she was so in that moment with me and took ownership of the case. So that's what people want. And I know it's not always easy in a contact center where it can be a little transactional, but if there's a way that you can start to incorporate that, I think you're going to see really big benefits from that. Work-life balance. I don't know. I'm not the best person to comment on work-life balance because I always laugh at myself because my life is like it's not in balance really. It's my own kind of balance, so maybe that's all right for me. But they want that as well. So we're going to look at ways to give flexibility to the employees. And then on the right-hand side, 95% of consumers told us that customer service has an impact on brand loyalty. So it's nothing to earth-shattering there. Digital channels, online self-service, and professional agents are important factors. Okay, so they want to be able to do more. They want to feel like they're contributing to a greater purpose at work, not just banging out transactions. And we need to be balanced, right? So we've spoken about, just quickly, sorry, we're talking about automation. And automation is often one of I'm responding to an RFP now, right, at the moment, and the customer has a bunch of just automation questions in there. What if we automated this? What if we automated that? Can the WFM automate this? Can it automate that? As like a whole stack of them. And we kind of can. But just something to be mindful of is, do people feel comfortable in the world of automation? And automation comes up in this economic headwind sort of climate because automation often means we're reducing the manual effort, we're reducing spend to produce a particular workflow, right? It's going to cost less because I've got a robot or something to do it. I'm all for it. I love it in workforce management from the perspective of automating transactional stuff, but I want your people to feel safe. So we've got software that automates real-time and intraday. We'll look at that a bit later. But I want you to think about automation and think about the people. I'm a very people-focused person. If someone said to you, you're a real-time analyst, I'm going to automate my real-time management function of WFM, what's the first thing you're going to feel? Like, where do I fit? What do I do? How do I live? How do I contribute anymore? So we had this comes from Forrester's Future Wave. Only 22% of people think they really have a handle on what would my career look like if the company decides to automate some part of my role. It's pretty small, about a fifth, okay? So in WFM land, we're going to look at automation. You can go and automate it, but you don't have to automate everything for the sake of it, right? So the impacts of filling automation can be felt across multiple areas in WFM. We've got automation that can reduce effort for the supervisors, for the employees themselves, of course, from the workforce management team as well. But it's about being smart I think it's about caring for people. It's about showing them that if we were to compress a particular workflow, here's what you could do with that time. I'm very pro workforce planners. I get asked it a lot. Do I think that we won't exist? No, never. I never think that will happen. I think that the function will change and there will be stuff that we can shift. But it means, in my mind, the way I envisage it, it means we'll be spending more time doing a digital based forecast, complicated strategic plans rather than less of the transactional sort of stuff. So the automation plays a part in helping reduce effort, but I think we just want to be smart about where we actually are spending the automation. And again, make your people feel loved. Don't let them feel scared by technology, and let them know that they still have a very vital role to play. Excuse me. All right. So the contact center agents have spoken, and 47% report they want flexible scheduling with 24/7 access. How's this? Agents who can't get the schedule they want or have to wait hours or days or miss an opportunity are unhappy. It's annoying, right? That's just annoying. So imagine like you're trying to, I don't know, what could we be trying to do? Raise a ticket for somebody, or we're trying to buy something online and Amazon says, oh, we'll get to your order in 3 days. No, nobody has that mentality anymore. So it's really funny. I speak to a lot of banks. Banks are great to speak to because banks typically have great apps. I can go on my National Australia Bank app and I can tell the bank that I'm in India and then I'm going to spend this amount of money and I'm going to use an ATM or not. I can reorder a PIN. I can do all sorts of stuff on there. Great app. And when you say, hello, bank, what do you do for your contact center agents? Oh, and like not so much in Australia, but in some of the others. I've got one that runs off Excel spreadsheets and WhatsApp groups. What if somebody wants this? Oh, they send an email. Oh, they put up their hand. Oh, they do this. I'm like, you're the one of the biggest domestic banks in this country, and you offer that service for your customers. What about your people? And they go, oh, actually, yeah, what about them? So we all have that mentality of we should be able to self-serve on any channel. And so we know from previous sessions, right, that the contact center is typically getting a younger demographic. We know that they're probably doing more difficult transactions. They don't want to come in and walk back into your contact center like it's 1985 and everything has to be, a walk-in request or a written note asking for something. Okay. Why am I banging on about this? Because if you remember back at the start, we said we already have a higher number of people who are looking to leave, and we can't just keep paying people more because money costs more at this point in time, right? So these are the kind of fun things that are going to make people happy and don't really cost the earth. Okay. So unhappy people cost contact centers money in absenteeism, reduced engagement. Have you ever just sat next to someone in a contact center who freaking hates being there and they just whinge and moan all day long? I know that I have. And you're like, can you not just quit? Can you not just leave? They affect everybody around them. And I don't have a statistic on that, but we all know when someone's just a downer, they hate being there. It does get to you. It disrupts team meetings and things like that. So they're just not engaged. And then we know we're not going to stay. So in your WFM, and I know I have my nice shirt on, and whatever system you have, right? I know there's ways that you can do things with it to drive more flexibility. I know the other guys out there as well. So I really want you to be looking at your self-service options. Are you using the trades? Now, a lot of people still don't even use scheduled trades in the way that they fully could. Schedule changes. I don't want us doing schedule changes. Anyone can learn how to do a schedule change, right? So we can automate that. The employees can change their own schedules, or I've got robots for that. We can look at ways to increase communication and protect your net staffing across all of those multiple channels and skills. And the payoff, again, I keep coming back to the same place. Flexible scheduling has been shown to increase job satisfaction. It fosters engagement, encourages innovation. Flexible scheduling I love as well because it reduces absenteeism. So if you think about somebody who has a shift that they might not want, right? In a very fixed environment, where perhaps access to scheduled trades is very limited, or the trade pool is very small, or perhaps it's just difficult. What are they probably going to do with it? I'm sorry, I'm sick today. I can't come in. It's probably what's going to happen. Whereas if they had the flexibility to move that shift around, they'd probably just move it and save their own leave, right? So this is what I want. I want to know where I need people, and then I want to plug the people in around and then let them have the flexibility within my business rules to then self-serve on that schedule. It makes a massive difference. We're going to look at some of the dollars and cents of this too. So a little bit nicey here, so bear with us. What I'm just showing you here is a bit of the WFM. I call it of the future. That's actually here and now. I've got about 60 customers using this type of system. This is like an alerting function, which is where we could have people working from anywhere. So we talk about flexibility and work-life balance and working from home. This is a sort of system that can interact with your employees no matter where they are. So you can see on the left-hand side, it's saying, hey, your email time's been cancelled. Please get back to the phone. We can do things like proactively send them shift opportunities. And the opportunity could be, would you like to pick up some extra hours? Would you like to go home early because I don't actually need you at this point in time? And that's all what it's about. It's about that flexibility, not just saying, here's the rotation. You must work this, whether I really need you or not. It's about, here is a set of shifts that match the requirement, then flex away over the top of that. So we want to automate routing of challenges to agents. So it knows about the employee. So it'll know, for example, that Fran can do certain types of interactions and send her the right opportunities based on her skill profile. This is so cool. We can even do things like look at who responds with the platform. So I can say, I really need extra staff, or the AI can determine we need extra staff. And it can target people who are very responsive with our platform, for example. So I won't bang on too much about the solution, only to say this kind of technology, obviously we have it and it's out there in the market. So this kind of thing that you're seeing on the screen would typically be costing us way more money, because it would be a person who is looking at a real-time screen or looking at the intraday screen, and then they go, oh, hi, Fran, you're out of adherence. Or they maybe walk around the contact center and say, who wants overtime? Or they perhaps, tap people on the shoulder, your AHT is too high. People, money, money, money. Whereas now we have robots for that. And that's great for us on the workforce management side and the operations side, because it reduces the manual effort, reduces costs. But back to the employees, they're getting the notifications, they're getting proactive reminders, they're getting alerts, they're getting options through the platform. And so for them, it's a massive trade-off where they're controlling their schedule from their iOS or Android device. They are self-selecting different options that they want, and the system is targeting with very specific opportunities based on the employee's ability to contribute to the skill pool. So it's a win-win, right? So gamification of the schedules is also something that's a little bit of fun. So we can do things like, I'm sure the others have stuff like this too. We can do things like, we can say, this is a really difficult shift to fill. Let's say the shift is from Sunday to, starts at 2 a.m. till, 6 p.m., or that's a long shift, 2 a.m. till 6 a.m., for example. And so we can say that nobody really wants that shift. So we can assign a lot of points to the shift. So if somebody decides to pick up that shift from the shift pool, they accrue more points. And that could be used to, give some incentive, or they can create their own schedules with that points accrual out of there. So we can increase acceptance of shift change offers we've seen from our customers by 34%. This is from the NICE's global survey report we do on our customers. We've managed, so remember what this is, this whole session is about elevating experience during the economic downturn, reduced overtime on average for our customers by 36%. Why? How? Because people can move their shifts around into they can see whether they're needed. And so we can say, actually, I don't need that part of your shift here. You can put it somewhere else. So I get my net staffing balanced here where I was overstaffed. And then I bring up the understaffed by moving a portion of the shift to the place where the person wants it and I need them. 36% reduction in overtime on average, right? Big dollars. And the people are happy. And again, back to my ethos, it's always about the people. I love that we get this business benefit in WFM, but I really want my people to feel valued in the organization. It's a difficult job. They are dealing with highly complex inquiries. There was we had the awards night for Auscontact on Friday, and somebody made a comment about the types of inquiries coming in when the customers themselves are experiencing financial hardship. So it could be trying to pay their registration on a vehicle. It could be that they're late for an energy bill. It could be that they are struggling with their mortgage. So they're already calling from a position of financial stress, which puts stress on the employees as well. So being able to give this flexibility, I'm so pro on this. I think the world of WFM has changed so fundamentally. We really have such a great capacity to give more to our people through some of these tweaks. Now I know I'm showing like the whole enchilada, but even if enchilada, can't believe I just said that in the presentation. But even if you go back to basics, things like people swapping their own shifts, using schedule preferences, looking at employee self-schedule changes. Most WFMs have that baked in. It's been around forever. Go back and revisit your self-service platform. And of course, then you have, the Rolls Royce of self-service that you can get to, as I'm showing here. But go back and take a look. Go back and take a look at who's got fixed shifts. That's always a fun exercise. Go and evaluate that list. Why has so-and-so had that shift forever? What's it doing to the rest of the people who can't have that shift? That sort of stuff costs you nothing to go and analyze and see if certain groups are consuming out of that shift pool and having a detrimental effect to everybody else. So I've done that exercise a few times, and you get people who are on fixed shifts because they have to take their kid to school. The kid's 17, right? He can drive to school. You don't need that shift anymore. Give it back. I want to give it to somebody else who wants an early shift, right? So stuff like that. Don't need to buy any more technology. You could go and have a look and make sure that the equity in your schedules is absolutely as fair as it can be. So you give everybody the opportunity of flexibility, not a couple of folks who have been having that shift since 1996. You can tell I'm old, right? I need to get some 2010 references. All right, employees are the key. They're the heart of the organization. To me, as I said, workforce management has always been about people. I know there's lots of numbers and spreadsheets and algorithms and forecasts and things around it, but it's not that to me. It's about people, and it's about you managing their contribution to your organization in a way that, makes them feel loved and part of the organization and valued, because they're just going to go somewhere else, right? And we know that from all the previous slides. So your efficiency affects their productivity. If someone's submitting a leave request for you and you take 3 days to write back or action it, it's a pretty ordinary experience. Nobody wants that. If they're trying to do a basic thing like change a shift and it takes a long time, nobody wants that. Oh, I didn't get my shift changed, so I rang up sick. That's not what we want either. So we want to free people from repetitive and mundane tasks. I think all of us in life would love to be free of repetitive and mundane tasks. I do not have one answer to all of that. Sometimes it's just life. But we should be looking at ways to alleviate that. And look at the regulations and rules that you have around some of your workflows. How can we really streamline them down? Things like disparate rules for disparate groups can also cause really a bit of angst where, oh, how come so-and-so's team gets this and I don't get this, and that sort of stuff. So have a look at all of that. But I really love this second point here. Your efficiency affects their productivity. Okay, so let's keep that in mind and have those people at the forefront of our strategies. Yeah. Performance management, I think we all know this. Happy employees, happier customers. So being able to have that insight into the individual and team behaviors, right, is really, really a critical part of this strategy of elevating the employee experience during the economic downturn. Because if we don't know, we can't improve and we can't measure. Personalized. I think we can actually just have that word personalized. I think that's a really important focus point. We don't want to be operating in too broad strokes. You need to know about the person and have a personalized plan that makes sense for where they're at and where they're at a particular time. We had to recently complete the nice surveys I saw. How are you? And do you like your manager and all this stuff? And we've had a really big shift in the organization with some restructure. So it's been a difficult year, right? And I look back on that survey and think, oh, if they surveyed me now, it'd be very different. It's very much a moment in time. So I think that personalization and that constant interaction with them helps to keep them on track at the various stages of where they are in their career journey. And gamify, inspire, be inspirational, motivation and productivity. Take your hands off the lever of WFM and see what happens when we give a little bit of control to the employees. Have a little test group and try some of these strategies out and see what happens. What happens to them, to their ESAT, to their productivity? What happens to you? If I wasn't doing, 6,000 schedule changes a month, what else could I be doing? And I say that number, it sounds high, but some of you are pushing through that many schedule changes in a month easily. It's mental. So, think about, how can we take our hands off, see what happens? Bit of fun, right?
Yeah, the impact that that has on your your people then in what they're delivering for your customers is, exponential. We
Yep.
were talking to one of our members and they've done a test with just one of their operations. So they've got, sort of five different contact center sites. With one of them, because they were micromanaging beyond belief, not just for
Yep.
workforce management, but everything. And again, conceptually empowered people will do much more for your business. So they took that brave step of pick one site. Let's, I don't know, treat them like adults because they are adults
Yep.
and let's see what happens. So they've done it right across the board. Option in, preference based, swap your shifts
Yep.
is what we need to deliver. Um, Conceptually, they were going to pilot something for 6 months. 6 weeks in,
There you go.
the discretionary effort that they saw return to their environment was just like, we can't
Yeah.
ignore this. How do we actually move with pace? Um, so again, you talked early on about engaged people, empowered people, autonomous,
Yep.
employees and the difference it can make. Just having an ethos that makes your people say, I'm just going to do one more, or I'm not going to quietly quit, or I
Yes.
am, you know, totally totally connected to customer outcome, which means they do go that extra step. The results for an organization for zero cost, right?
Yep.
Actually, you're probably saving money, but it's a zero cost investment. But it actually takes a lot to let go, right? Not just in workforce management, but right across the board, because we do have this historic view, go figure, that
Yep.
says because we did do it in 1996, we're still going to do it
Yep.
now.
Yep.
And
Yep.
because I can control and see every minute detail of your life, I will. So there's this real shift, right? That says just because you see it doesn't mean you need to, manage because of it or with it. So,
No.
again, there's this real opportunity, right?
There really is. And I really appreciate you saying that. And so I do speak to customers who want to, but it's the workforce planners who are like, I don't actually know what my job would be. So back to that really early slide, if you're going to
Yeah.
embark on something like this, it's important to think about their role clarity and what they're going to do and what else they can do because they feel like my job is administering schedules. That's what I do.
It's the loss factor.
Yeah.
It's the
Yeah.
loss factor. So I think when you were talking about that stuff earlier, for me, it's like, every single thing here is underpinned by really strong strategic decision making. So you know where you're going and why you're doing it,
Yep.
but actually hand in hand, a really strong change management practice
Yep.
that says why we're doing what we're doing, how have we assessed the impact on people, because that is what we're all about.
Yeah.
But particularly recognizing what changes and what does that mean as far as a loss factor for your people within that WFM
Oh,
space.
100% it really does. And often that's really interesting because often we're very focused on the employee and the employee outcomes. But it's like, hang on a second, what about the folks on the tools? Let's make sure
Yeah.
they know they're loved, they're valued. We're going to use them, but in a more strategic way rather than this way. So definitely does pay big dividends and often not that difficult to implement. So I'm just going to push forward at a little quicker pace, just in the interest of time. So, KPIs. So Fran brought up a really great point there about allowing people the space, to complete interactions. So we're seeing things like some of the KPIs that people are measuring towards are really changing. And the two that I will pick on would be, of course, AHT and adherence. Do you want to have an argument whether AHT means someone is served someone in a quality manner or not? Happy to have that discussion with you. We had to, when I worked at American Express, our team manager made us all go away and come back with case studies on whether there was actually any link to AHT and quality. But there's not necessarily. So they are two things that make sense to us operationally, and we still need to know them, right? I must know the handle time of the interaction. I must know the adherence so I can understand how closely the contact center executed to the plan, but maybe they're not agent KPIs anymore. And this is really important because most of the interactions that your folks are handling are probably longer than they ever were anyway, because they've tried to self-service through a myriad of channels. So let's not be targeting people that you have to speak for 250 seconds or 300 seconds. We can drop those away. We can use them as operational targets and measures, but they're not for the employee. Employees could be looking at, other, survey ratings and things like that. And then there's just some others for the other personas, but I'm just going to go by in the interest of time. I wanted to, we have, this is just a summary of this slide. We know this, and I think we've touched on it in a variety of ways, but just to summarize, we're going to get a better rate of satisfaction. We're going to focus on our folks who are more likely to be here. Look at that little guy. He's going like this. I love being here. Revenue growth and operational costs can reduce. Remember, I said that our customers using our automation platform are seeing at least a 36% reduction in overtime. So I've just got a few numbers here. This is real use case stuff from real customers. And yes, this is an American one, but bear with me. So I won't read too much into the products that they were using. You can read that yourself. But you can see the time saving by leveraging technology that can come with this particular suite. So 11% productivity increase, 2 hours a day saved through reporting. Now, this one is a big bank, so there's some big numbers here. But in this use case, you can see some of the, there's an actual business case from this bank. The annual number of interactions was 115 million with 360-second AHT. And you see the costs and the hourly rates and things like that. Each person has on estimate 1 hour of overtime per month. So 3% improvement in agent occupancy. They got a 4% improvement in agent utilization. 45% of time went back to the WFM team because they didn't have to do schedule changes anymore. So this is about elevating the employee experience through the economic downturn, but I've just taken a little bit of a different spin to show how technology can also help save your WFM bottom line. So if you look at the time the supervisor spent putting their hands on schedules and making those changes, it's millions of dollars there. So there's something like 3 million for this organization, another $2 million saved there, which I know are big numbers for the Australian market. This is a typical ROI payback model, which is based off our customer assessment for 500 agents, which is a little bit more aligned to the market that we see here. These numbers here, as I said, I've got about 10 models of these on the go at the moment. These are not crazy numbers. This 80% reduction is all fully achievable. And so we can build something like this out for your organization if you're ever interested. But there's big money saves there too. So just in summary, before we get to Q&A, I guess what I'm saying is that it's a two-tiered, uh, it can be a win-win. So for us on workforce management side, it gives all this kind of automation, technology, self-service, gives us the opportunity to really be workforce planners, not record keepers. Keeping records is really important, right? We need to know who was sick, who was late, who had a break change. That's important, but it's transactional and it doesn't really add any strategic value to the organization. We all know that we could train somebody very quickly to do that. It was my first job, was a queue pilot, and then making changes in the schedule, right? So if that function was automated and people were comfortable with it, they knew what else they were doing, probably we're spending more time on forecasting and really becoming trusted advisors to the organization that I want you guys to become. That's great for us. Cost saving and a role advancement for us in workforce management and less time spent on transactional. Then we have our employees. They're telling you they want this. If you can let me do it myself, I'll probably stay. If I can choose my own shifts, I'm not going to quite quit. If I can, be happy and productive, if I feel I have that autonomy, that I'm treated like an adult around my own schedule, then I'm probably going to deliver a much better service to my customers. So it's so beneficial to all of us to really look at the key WFM workflows. Go back to basics, as I said, and as Fran was mentioning, a lot of this stuff is zero cost. This is all very out there and full platform, but it doesn't have to be. There's little tweaks that you can make today, as I said, looking at the fairness in shift allocation, looking at schedule preferences, self self changes, and schedule swaps, looking at the way you allocate leave. So I speak to lots of customers who don't even use all the WFM. And I've worked for lots of different WFMs and I'm here now, but do you use the time off manager? No. Is your leave integrated to a HR system so people don't have to go to places? No. So you may already have some really cool things that you could go and try in your own WFM. Doesn't have to be ours. That could give you some quick wins. So with that, almost out of voice, I'm at the end of the actual slide part of the session. Otherwise, I will check in with Fran how we are going on the Q&A. Remember, there's a very cool headset if you ask the best question.
Thanks, Nadia. And we really appreciate you pushing through with your voice. And I'm pretty sure everyone can tell how passionate you are about this as a topic because, again, it comes through in everything you talk about. Got a question here from James.
Hey, yeah.
And it's connecting it in with AI. So, given the rapid development in AI technology, how does the panel see that AI will improve the employee experience? Interesting one.
Yeah, I'll jump in first and happy to
Yeah.
have other contributors. So at NICE specifically, we have AI embedded in a few different ways. The first way is for the forecast. So you can produce a forecast which is powered by artificial intelligence. So in NICE, the forecaster can choose from up to 46 different algorithms, which are variants of different forecasting models like the Box-Jenkins, multilinear, my mind is going blank. Box-Jenkins, multilinear seasonal regression, and there's a couple more that it's just gone out of my mind right now. And so the AI will go and does a backcasting exercise, and it works out which of those 46 variants will yield you the lowest mean absolute percentage error. And so it will choose on your behalf that model that's going to produce the most accurate forecast. So for a person, if you think about creating a forecast, maybe we have 200 different work items in that set. Who the heck's got time to go and run a whole bunch of simulations over all of that data for 46 different models to determine which will yield you the most accurate forecast? No one. You'd have to go and hire more people. So in that way, we're bringing data science to the masses. So you can click a button. It's called Best Pick, and the NICE forecasting by AI will choose the best model for you. In the EEM platform, which is NICE Employee Engagement Manager, which is the one with the mobile app and people moving their shifts around through the mobile app and things like that, it's got an AI-infused rules engine where you have a rules library and the AI can detect under which conditions to enact certain rules. So things like proactively reaching out for extra shifts or identifying that a work item is over or understaffed or under what conditions to actually communicate with people. That's also got an AI layer over the top. So the technology is embedded in there, but I really feel that it's still going to take humans to drive it. So I still get asked questions like, could the AI, model for all the Christmases and things like that, and could we just, can it just auto? I got one question today. Can it just auto generate schedules and auto generate? So it's never going to do that. I don't see that would kind of ever make sense to me. We still need to drive and we still need to steer this thing. And the thing about WFM and why I feel comfortable with it is there's just so many factors happening in the contact center that are never going to be in your data set, right? We're going to accrue a new BPOs, right, are my biggest customers. Now they win and lose clients all the time. So that can never be in the historical data set. Oh, I just want an airline, I want a bank, I'm going to do the WFM for this organization. So those people must be on top of the WFM, driving it all the time. So I think you'll find that some of the workflows in the technology itself are going to empower better outcomes and drive some smarter decision makings. But I feel like we're always going to be needed, and we're not going to be, I don't think, made redundant by AI. Thanks for the
I think
question.
Thanks, Nadia. I think you're right. I think you know, touching on some of the other elements you've kind of covered off today, that human component still is about what next with this or what
Yeah.
else or so what. And again, it's not going to do everything for us, and it is about factoring in what are those small steps that people are comfortable and organisations are comfortable appetite wise, starting with, but equally, what is there within your control now to actually start thinking differently about, old business rules? You touched on that before. If your business rule is that every person in your centre has to do one late shift and one Friday a month, or I don't know, something. But when you look at their work, they never get calls that are aligned to their skill set on a Friday till 6 o'clock anyway.
Yeah.
The nonsensical kind of element still has to come in there. So it still has to be balanced out by, that in-depth knowledge, customized with some of the tech and automation and AI that's available. But I think that it certainly is opening up some new opportunities as we're seeing it play out. I don't know,
Yeah.
we've got a whole lot that are kind of pushing the envelope yet as far as AI, on addition to those elements that you've touched on. I don't know that we've seen too much else, but we're quite excited by, you know, organisations such as NICE and others that are really saying, how do we use it to innovate differently in a way that, kind of connects with some of those challenges?
Yeah, I still
Um,
see it.
yeah,
Yeah. Oh, sorry, go ahead. Do
no,
another
you
question.
go.
I was just going to say, and I still feel like there's so much, exactly as you said, in the basics of operations that, it's great that there's AI and things like that, but I still feel so many customers I still have aren't able to create, proper omni-channel forecasts because basic things like integrations aren't there. There's a lot of that I still feel like bothers me. I think we could always go back, exactly as you said, Fran, maybe there's legacy rules or legacy policies and, making sure that in our sphere today, we've done everything that we can to optimize what we have. And I always think it's a very low cost exercise to go back and look. It's great that there's robots, but often there's just some common sense things that, we had that rule for a long time. Do we actually need it anymore? Things like that. I really encourage you to explore those because they're a low hanging fruit. I hope it doesn't come across that you need all this gear to make some of these strategies happen.
No, I think what it shows though is that there's almost this two speed. There's this opportunity to say, what can tech give us? What
Yep.
can tech support? What can it enable? But equally, there's this whole other piece. And I think the word you chose, optimize, is the perfect word, right? I speak to members who have bought kit that they've never turned on.
Yeah.
And I'm like, where's this optimization lens? Who's
Yep.
actually stopping to take a breath to say, you've invested already. And in fact, you're paying licensing fees every year for stuff that you're not using, let
Yep.
alone, and whether some of that's about that change averse, kind of entrenched, ingrained practice. Um, Interesting to see why people don't shift out of it. But sometimes it gets lost as well, right? There
Oh
was a
yeah, it
feature
does.
bought when someone rolled out new tech that everybody didn't understand, and they've just continued without even pushing the button. It would
Yeah,
be worth, in my mind, I would challenge everybody to say, actually, who's our provider, regardless of what it is, where you're up to in a stage of, relationship with said provider.
yep,
Where's the come in for a day and tell us we've got this optimized? Where's the tell us some suggestions, or how do you open it up so they can speak to a Nadia that says, actually, here's some basics that you guys aren't
yeah.
even thinking about, let alone stepping off that cliff into the future. But there's a real opportunity around optimization.
Yeah, that's really important that you say that. I mean, I have been in WFM a long time, and anyone can look me up on LinkedIn. You'll see that I've worked for pretty much everyone. So I know that all the software is out there reasonably pretty capable, right? Of course, I'm, you know, in favor of ours, of course. But a big part of my role is actually exactly that. These things take love and care. They're not just a robot that you plug in and it goes. And so they need constant, education around them. They need to be revised for the current climate. So if you think about, again, having rules that were older or legacy and you want to be able to introduce more flexibility, probably you have already the kit today to enable you to do that. Maybe it's a refresher training or going back to your vendor and saying, hey, how can I use this today to adopt to a more flexible style of scheduling to help elevate that employee experience during the downturn. Go and my customers make me work very hard. Go and make your go and be the same to your vendor. I encourage you to do so.
I
You
think that
might
also
just,
leads
yeah,
to innovation, though, right? I always
yeah, for
say to
sure.
people, then vendors are the best people in this industry because they are the ones out there pushing the doors of innovation, pushing the envelope. So you've actually got to share your problems and share your
Yes,
challenges because that's how
yes,
we get creative minds working and thinking for what's next. We do have another
yeah,
question here
yeah. Go
from
ahead.
David, who would like to hear of some examples around shift management that's leading to improved retention and engagement.
So I could probably share some use cases. It might be the way to do it over the after the session. I'm just not grappling with any specific statistics of one customer coming to mind just yet. But I know we have published testimonials and use cases to show that particular metric,
We
if
might
that's okay.
include that. Thanks,
Yeah,
Nadia. We
yeah,
might
yeah.
include that in what we send out. But the
Yeah, I
types of
can include
things
it.
certainly some of our members are reporting against. So again, not hard stats, but we
Oh,
can come
okay.
back with some of that.
Yep.
Um, we're seeing you touched on absenteeism reducing. We're seeing that across the board. We're also seeing adherence as far as start and finish. Um,
Yes.
and that whole component around discretionary. So where organisations are allowing people to be in control of that as far as they can, they're also seeing increased uptake
Yeah.
of flexibility when it's needed the other way. So again, if you say no, stick to your schedule, that's it, you're locked in.
Yeah.
When you go out needing support, people will say, well, pay me overtime. So again, there's this far more balanced two-way relationship that's being built when you can give people that flexibility.
Yeah, exactly. So I've just gone back to the previous slide just quickly. And again, we can send you some more specific metrics, but exactly as Fran said, there's some of the key high macro level improvements. But even this one here, like under the value type of better agent experience, with this, they're seeing a 10 to 20% improvement in the recost, in the retention element, reducing agent attrition. And this came because we're providing a higher level of employee engagement and supporting that hybrid working model, which is much more frequently requested in this day and age. So these are the type of broad category areas that you can expect to see improvements in. But really, I think we all get a sense of ourselves that, again, that more control, that immediate response, the autonomy is likely to lead to happier employees.
Love it. On that note, Nadia, thank you so much as always.
No
We
worries.
love having you along. We love absolute experts actually talking about stuff that matters in contact centers. So thank you as always. I hope you've all enjoyed it. We'll send out the recording and anything else Nadia's got on some of those case studies that support conversation. Thanks again, and we will talk to you all next time.
Thanks, Fran. Thanks, everybody, for joining. I really appreciate your time and your questions. And we'll get back to you with our headset winner as well. Thank you and have a good
Perfect.
afternoon.